Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. Kevin and I, of course, started out right away, right? And he jumped right into a topic he's going to jump into on his podcast. And I said, Kevin, you know what? Let's jump into it on mine too. So, Kevin, um, take the lead. Tell us what you just told me. I mean, every time we converse, I think, geez, this needs to be on the podcast. So I listened and I said, wow, he's here we go again. This needs to be on the podcast. So Kevin, tell us about breadcrumbs. Tell us about this new episode 6. Episode five's out already. I've got to get
Yeah,
to that.
episode 5 was launched last Wednesday. So Breadcrumbs, a podcast for people who know it's not working. Well, okay, it's a weekly podcast where I release the latest episode every Wednesday morning. Okay, so episode 5 was on how extreme wealth broke the U.S. economy, right? And because this is a part of the thread of understanding that of how did we arrive in this place? Because 50 years ago, America had the greatest working class in global history, had the greatest middle class in global history, and where most Americans could achieve the American dream of owning a home, sending their kids to college, having health care, non-contributing pensions, right? How did we wind up in this spot where 60% of the country can't afford a $1,000 unexplained expense? So that's what I talk about.
Unexpected.
Unexpected expense, right?
Unexpected.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we have no savings, I mean, that's where we are. So I cover that, a 2-hour episode, bringing us through how Extreme Wealth did this thing on purpose and why they did it. And it's all verifiable stuff. Okay, so that's episode 5. Episode 6, which I record this afternoon. So I'm making news here on the Political No
I'm
Brainer
stealing his
podcast.
show.
No, not at all, not at all. This is good. This is it broadcasting to
This
it.
is collusion.
No, this is symbiotic. This is win-win.
Symbiotic.
Yeah,
Symbiotic.
yeah. I feed your podcast, you feed my podcast, the listeners cross-pollinate, and it's all good. We cover the country that way. So this time I'm gonna take the elephant in the room square on and talk about why it's important for us to have real difficult conversations now. And primarily it's because, just like with everything we've experienced in our lives, when a problem occurs, and I always tap into everyone's shared experience. So you think about your experience and I think about mine, and hopefully the listeners will think about theirs. I have never experienced an occasion where a problem has presented itself and it got better by simply ignoring it, by kicking it down kicking it down kicking the can down the road. Hopefully it'll go away. It never goes away. In fact, it only gets worse. And unless it's ultimately resolved, it becomes toxic, where it destroys your relationship, it destroys a friendship, it destroys your job, a work environment, right? Well, we have a series of problems that's destroying America because we have not had serious conversations on how to fix them. One of them is what has happened to our economics, what has happened to our commitment to shared prosperity. We had a profound commitment to shared prosperity in America, which occurred after World War II and occurred through into the 80s, right? Where the working class of the country was participant in the American dream, home ownership and beyond, right? That is long gone. And we saw the signs of this slowly but surely across the 80s and the 90s into the 2000s. And as a country, as a population, we have not seriously dealt with that conversation and why, right? And so right now it's at a point where 60% of the country has a nostril and a half underneath the water. They have no savings, right? They, barely, okay. So with all that in mind, we need to talk about why it's important for us to rebuild our ability to do difficult conversations. And the difficult conversation I'm going to focus on, since last week was economics, is this vitriolic divide between the people who voted for Trump and the people who voted for Kamala Harris. The problem there is this. We can't solve any of our national problems with just the people who voted for Trump or just the people who voted for Kamala Harris. We actually have to come together to inform the conversation and work out a solution that all of us can buy into. This is how we used to function in America, right? We don't function that way anymore. So I'm going to try to, as a person who voted for Trump, and as a person who is a lifelong Democrat who voted for Trump, as a part of the 13% of African Americans in America who voted for Trump, yeah, I'm a 13 percenter, right? Okay, I'm
But
gonna
not a 1%er.
no, no, not 1%. I'm a 13 percenter, right? 13%, right? Okay, so what I'm trying to show is here are the actual reasons, and you look at your own experience and your background, but here are my reasons of what drew me to vote for Donald Trump and how I'm proud that I did, even though I'm not proud of what he does. I'm not proud of everything he does. I'm not proud of how he does what he does, but I'm proud that I voted for him because he was the better alternative than voting for Kamala Harris. And I'm going to lay that out, right? And because it explains why so many women, so many Hispanics, so many blacks, so many young people, every age group, every region of the country, every battleground state. I mean, 98% of our counties. I mean, it's not just Kevin Howard, but we still throw away those people and say that they only did it for these negative, divisive reasons, and it's not true,
Well,
right?
it's not true. But let me
And we
jump in
can't
real quick.
understand we can't understand each other if we continue to reduce each other to those things we don't like or don't agree with, and that's the
Not at
problem.
all. But let me jump in real quick. So let me tell you how President Donald Trump recently just reinvigorated his most dedicated base. And I don't disagree with the decision. It's just the marketing point that I'm pointing out. Trump said, in a post to his social media, that if Nigeria does not halt the persecution of Christians, he may send troops in guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who commit these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing the Department of War to prepare for a possible action, he wrote. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet. So now attacking is sweet. Just like the terrorist things attacks, just like the terrorists attack our, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. So, um, this is him reinvigorating his base. I agree we should be protecting innocent people at all levels. At all levels, not just our cherished Christians. I have Christian friends. I love Christianity. I like to say I'm not necessarily a Christian. I'm a Catholic. People say there's no difference. I think there is a difference. That's a whole nother point for a whole nother day. Um, but my point is he is a marketing genius. There's trouble in the White House paradise. There's an issue now. As of today, people are starving. People are going without food stamps. That has started today, and there's an issue. So he's kind of deflecting the issue. Now we're talking about Nigeria, right? He's in China where literally we've had Chinese leaders tell him the reason we're so far ahead of your economy is because you've been a country at war for the 50 years, and essentially we've been a country at peace for the last 50 years. He's the guy talking about ending the never-ending wars, and he's starting a new one in Nigeria. So where do we go from here? How do we connect the dots? I'm not saying don't defend the Christians in Nigeria, but what about the Uyghurs in China, where he is just holding hands with Xi Jinping and singing Kumbaya? What about the Uyghurs that are being slaughtered at mass rates by the Chinese government? I mean, are we not interested in protecting them at all? Because I'm just asking about the idea of protecting of the United States. Are we going to get out of the role of being the international peace force, or are we going to get deeper into the role? Because under my understanding, not only as Trump president, but as Tulsi Gabbard national security advisor, we were essentially getting out of the role of never-ending wars. And Nigeria is not going to be vicious. It's not going to be sweet. It's not going to be fast. We're going to be entering into West. We're going to be entering into Africa. We're going to be entering our troops where they haven't been. And this is not going to be simple. They're going to be ambushed at rapid rates. They're going to be, if we enter ground forces rather than drone strikes or something that won't prove to be much effective at all. But if we send ground troops in, we're in a situation and a bad one at that.
Well, I mean, and we've had this conversation before. The
Oh,
only
so
way,
Charlie just asked me to resend
okay.
the.
Oh,
Let me
good,
do that.
good, good. Okay, so while you do that, I'll answer your question,
Yeah,
Coach.
please.
Connecting the dots, the way you track Trump is not by what he says, it's by what he does. Okay. Um, so let's tee up the kind of things he says. Like, he said in when he ran for the election in 2016, he said about Hillary, lock her up. Remember? Lock her
I
up.
do.
Except when he became president of the United States, he did nothing to chase after Hillary Clinton and do what Joe Biden did to him, right? He did not sic Republican state attorney generals on Hillary Clinton in order to try to get her prosecuted for anything, right? He says a lot of crap. He said about the Palestinians, finish them right now. Right. While he was collecting $100 million in donations from the Israeli lobby for his presidential campaign last year. Okay, what I'm trying to say here is he says a lot of things, but what does he actually do? He is the person who has twice forced Netanyahu to a ceasefire that, of course, the Israelis have a propensity to break. But the point is, the reason why that's happening and that Joe Biden never did that is because his intent is to end the genocide in Gaza. But how do you go about doing it when you have a powerful lobby who owns every politician in Washington, right? And he's battling that battle. So what he's doing in Africa right now, what he's doing, you know, this just him saying that as president of the United States has things happening on the ground getting a little shaky. No, they know he's capable. No, everyone knows he's capable of. They see what he's doing off the coast of Venezuela to these drug ships that are coming out and stuff like that. And some of them they don't even know if they're drug ships. But the point is
Well, that's an issue, and it's a big statement because if we, we literally listened to Pete Hegseth say we have such great intelligence, and then there was concern that it was the wrong ships, and
but
that's
here's
an
the
issue.
thing.
But here's the thing. No, no, I'll make the thing first because I know I'm not saying I know what you're going to say. I'm just saying here's my thing. I understand sometimes you got to take an aggressive approach and even make mistakes, and failure can be the key to success sometimes, but. The problem is we can't just glorify the approach. We've really got to be more accurate.
Well, again, I don't respond to any of that because again, the what he's do what all I'm saying to you here is that we need to differentiate the performative stuff from the actual stuff, from what he's actually doing, right? So yes, what he's actually doing off the coast of Venezuela is you have U.S. naval forces and attacking what is perceived as drug related vessels, right, and destroying them or whatever. The implications of doing that is to send to Venezuela the serious message, right? That their provision of drugs, and it's not just to Venezuela, it's anyone who's sending drugs into the United States, that this right here is, we've never done this before. You're subject to this kind of attack, right? That is going to have an effect. I'm not advocating that method, but that's what he's doing. When it comes to Africa, he hasn't done anything yet. I can't even imagine him sending ground forces, and to the extent it would be ground forces, it's going to be black ops. There is no need to send the U.S. Army straight leg right in, walking down the street. No, we don't need Mogadishu. There's no need for that. It would be special forces, black ops going in there cutting throats, like Colin Powell used to do in the 60s.
One second,
You
let me
know,
make this point. During
and
his
that's
first
fine.
term, he sent black ops into Africa. I believe it was some okay,
Yeah.
and they suffered a miserable fate. They died on during
Well,
they told him the mission had been compromised. Okay. And here's the thing about that is he was commenting on a particular episode of some certain show, and it was the show was happening at the time, so we know he was watching the show rather than in the situation room, listening to the reports that the mission had been compromised. And his exact words were, according to his staff, proceed. And our special black ops died at the hands of him. Charlie is here.
Charlie, okay, well, let me, before you invite Charlie in, I know he's in, but let me respond to that. Again, first and foremost, the first term was dominated by the neocons. Okay.
Okay, but can we
Trump,
say it was
right.
it was a disaster? The mission was a
Of course it
disaster.
was a
It was
disaster,
an
but
absolute disaster.
what
And
I'm
when
saying is,
when Jimmy Carter's Iran mission was a disaster, the scrutiny was brutal. But
well,
when Donald Trump's mission is a disaster in Africa to the point where special ops died, just like our troops died in Iran during Jimmy Carter's rescue mission, the scrutiny wasn't even there.
hey, coach, but you're not hearing me.
I
That
no no,
that
I'm
was
just
the
making my point. I am.
no, yeah, your point though continues to drive the point as if it's Donald Trump. In 2016, it was the neocons who ran his administration, and he ultimately, by the end of his term, ran the neocons out. All right, this is not the neocons now. So I mean, so yes,
So
the
it's different.
neocon. It's of course it's different. The neocons is the senator from South Carolina who's supporting the war in Ukraine. That's the neocons, right? They want to continue to do the forever wars.
Well,
He's the one
let's get
who's
Charlie up to
fighting against.
speed.
Yeah, well, hold it. Let me just say this because this is the damaging stuff that the prevailing narrative says about Trump, right? He's the one who's trying to upset the establishment cart, right? On the conservative side, it's the neocons. They want war everywhere. Okay. So he's fighting his own party to do that, right? And so it's not going to be clean and neat. So let's be clear who's doing what. Sometimes the neocons get the upper hand, and like they did with him bombing the Iranian nuclear site, which was a stupid mission, which put the United States in a worse position. Right. That was not his instinct because he's been trying to negotiate with Iran for a peace treaty. Right. So
Right. Well,
that's that's it. So direct the criticism towards the forces who are actually doing what they're doing. Yes, he's president and he has to take responsibility just like he did for those special forces who died in Africa on a stupid mission. But that's because the neocons could care less about our serving military. They use them like Pinkertons. They continue to use them like Pinkertons. But that is not what Trump is interested in doing. And that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to defer to the
right, right.
neocons in that
So
case.
so get Charlie up to speed on where we're going with this. Tell him how we
Hey,
started this.
Charlie.
Good morning, Charlie.
What's going on, my friend? Coach is getting my blood flowing early, trying trying to get me to connect dots with Trump and possibly starting a new forever war in the continent of Africa, as we have Christians being slaughtered, in an internal civil war there. And so that's kind of how we got going. So Charlie, jump in, my friend.
Hang on, I think you need to unmute, Charlie. Are you muted?
Here we go.
There you are.
Yeah.
I haven't read into the details. Just that I saw that looks like we're going to get involved in some manner in what's going on there. I was actually happy to hear that. I was when I was reading about what was going on there, I was kind of shocked how kind of under the radar that's been in terms of all media coverage here, not just legacy media, just in general. Kind of felt ignorant to that. I mean, I knew there were issues there, and as there are in a lot of places in Africa, but that's some pretty bad shit that's going on there.
Yeah.
So I think there is a place that I think we should be doing something. We seem to pick and choose what horrific crises we decide are important to us for whatever reasons, but
So
pretty, pretty bad.
the only point I made on it was I applaud I applaud the protection of the fact that we're going to protect Christians in Nigeria. The concern is, again, isn't that that Donald Trump is going to take an aggressive hand. The thing I was pointing out was the marketing piece. It was Trump said in a post to social media that if Nigeria does not halt the persecution of Christians, which I want to see halted, he may send troops, U.S. troops, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I completely agree with the approach. But what I was making is the second point was, this is his statement again. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action, he wrote. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet. I've never known of an attack to be sweet, but that's okay. That's his words. That's his let Trump be
Yeah,
Trump.
like it's
And
written by
then,
13-year-olds. Yeah.
just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians, our Christians are cherished. Our people in general are cherished. My point is not that Richard Nixon said it best, and I'm going to argue this point till I die. When we saw Bosnia and we saw Muslims corralled in fenced in areas, he made the statement if it was Christians or Jews, the world would react immediately. Because it's Bosnia, because it's Muslims, we are not going to do a thing.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Clinton did negotiate and send in a really good diplomat to come to some conclusions there. But are we a country? Is this president a president that, with the appointment of Tulsi Gabbard to end the never-ending wars, are we going to finally end the never-ending wars? Or are we going to keep re-engaging in the never-ending wars? Is my question. Not necessarily. It is very much necessarily protecting the Christians, but there's Uyghurs in China that are being slaughtered at a atrocious rate. He's now, like I said, with Xi Jinping in a meeting. And
Yeah.
he's not talking about the Uyghurs. It doesn't even show up on the radar. That's not a part of the discussion.
Well, I mean, you think about what does Christian mean to Trump, right? It means two things: white and a voting bloc. That's it. Yeah,
An adamant voting bloc.
yeah, yeah. So this is how he has always thought. That's never going to change. I don't know. I think if anything, if we're going to see increased military action, I think he's going to continue to find reasons to flex in this hemisphere. It's a modern day Monroe Doctrine he's trying to flip around over there. I mean, look at this. These extrajudicial killings in Venezuela. It's insane to me that that this is going on with such little blowback from Congress. And then that move to was it the which committee was that they only reported to the Republicans in the committee? The armed, I saw the senator from Virginia just kind of very upset about that, having never seen that before, where they decided to brief just the Republicans, and one of the like traditionally most even-handed committees in the Senate. Do you guys know what I'm talking
I
about?
know what you're talking about. I don't know specifics, so that's why I'm.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Senate is, if we keep in mind how the founding fathers intended our Congress to be structured, was the House generally plays hardball, fastball, but the Senate always has time to do things right. No matter what you do, you got 6 years before you come up for re-election. No matter how bad you screw up, you're going to get re-elected. I mean, Mitch McConnell's got a state just buried in welfare programs, and he says we're not a socialist state. I mean, it's the biggest state, one of the biggest recipients, but he just gets reelected. So I don't even understand why now they have to overplay their hand in the Senate when, in fact, I saw that where they're just reporting to a Republican committee. I didn't know enough about it. I didn't actually make any notes on it either. But why? What is the fascination with just absolute manipulation? I don't understand. And people are going to say Obama was a champ at it too. He may have very well been a champ at it. I'm not disregarding Obama's game playing at all. Don't hate the player, love the game. But here's the thing. We are blatantly ignoring all precedent. Like Charlie says, let's be serious here. Yes, if we use a drone at the cost of $4,000 to fire a missile into a boat that's transporting drugs, you're sending a serious message to Venezuela drug runners. It could happen to you. But are we ever going to address the fact, coming from the guy who graduated Wharton Business School, there's a supply and demand issue? If there was no demand for the supply, there would be no supply. But in America, we have so many crises. We have a life skills crisis. We have a mental health crisis, which drives up the demand for drugs and alcohol. And we're doing nothing about that. But yes, we've got a president that's willing to disregard international law and bomb random boats in the middle of the ocean. And I guess that's an approach that'll make some difference. It may mitigate the amount of boats that come across the border, that come across the ocean, I guess, with drugs.
Coach, I
All I'm
want to
saying,
tie a thread between what Charlie said, that Trump is doing in terms of, bringing back, activating the Monroe Doctrine and his actions, and what you just said about it being and somehow being unprecedented, right? Because you're absolutely right. I think that Charlie, what Trump is, and this is the difference between what he's saying and what he's doing, right? The aspects of what he's saying that he's actually doing is I if you go back to his Secretary of State and Marco Rubio's interview with Megyn Kelly 1 week into the administration, they announced to the world that the age of American hegemony, the single superpower age, is over, and that we're entering a period where there are three superpowers that and Russia and China and the United States, and that the United States were going to it's incumbent on the United States to negotiate with them. So we're back to spheres of influence like we had in the Cold War. And what that means is activation of the Monroe Doctrine. Exactly what Charlie is saying. What that means is, okay, what is America's reasserting America's area of influence, where once over the last 30 years we were exerting influence everywhere, right? 800 bases around the world. Now we're pulling back. Right. This is why Denmark is worried about us taking Greenland, because that's natural resources. This is why we're becoming more active in the, off the coast of Venezuela, right? Because this is our area of influence, right? The area of influence for Russia is going to be Eastern Europe and parts of the Middle East, and China is going to be Asia and good chunk of Africa. I mean, this is what's happening. That these superpowers are setting up their spheres of influence, and within there, right? This is where Canada has a reason to worry about being the 51st state, because they will be forced to yield if this is what's going to happen, right? And so what I'm trying to say here is, whether we like that or not. Now, I think I rather go back to spheres of influence, because it was better diplomacy. It was enforced by the forever wars. Okay, so I would rather go back to that, if that's and that is the direction he seems to be going, where he's going to negotiate with China and Russia, and we can move away from the progressive use of surrogate wars, the accelerated use of surrogate wars, like the war in Ukraine. Okay, but it's not. Is it going to be fair? Is it going to be reasonable? And let's go back to unprecedented. Okay, I mean, again, we're talking about a country. We participated in the Bay of Pigs to overthrow the government of Cuba. Right, right. And when we failed to overthrow the government of Cuba, and they signed a nuclear defense treaty with the Soviet Union, because they are communists and the Soviet Union is communist, we brought the world to the brink of World War III, because the idea that the Soviet Union would put intercontinental nuclear missiles in Cuba, 100 miles off the coast of Florida, right, was against our national security. You know, and so what I'm trying to say here is that Cuba had every right to defend itself when we tried to overthrow them. They defended themselves by going to the Soviet Union, who's an ally, and getting help, right? And we brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Why? Because it's the Monroe Doctrine. We claim this entire hemisphere. This is not unprecedented. This is business as usual. All Trump is doing is just going. He didn't blockade, Venezuela, not letting any food in. He's attacking some ships. I'm not advocating for that, but he's attacking some ships and stuff like that. But this is back to business. This is not unprecedented.
well, I think at least you could make an argument for not defending the Bay of Pigs fiasco, but the argument for national security was there. This idea that these random this performative shit with blowing these boats up and releasing this footage and claiming that this is really about a war on drugs. I mean, I guess it's always you never get in the full story. I get that, but this story is so full of shit that I mean, and these are people being executed, at the whim of Pete Hegseth. I mean, if you're going to have someone who's going to make these decisions about when it's appropriate to do an extrajudicial execution on the water, and it's basically only being decided by, the Department of War. That's pretty nauseating. And again, it was Mark Warner was the one I was talking about, and it was the Armed Services Committee. And I mean, now that is unprecedented to address only one party in the Armed Services Committee. It's never been treated that way. So I understand why Warner is as upset as he is. But I have finally, after all these years, gotten used to the fact that the distance between what is said by not just Trump, but by a lot of people in the Republican Party now, and what is done is just, there was so much performative BS going on.
Yes.
And it really stood out when I watched Marjorie Taylor Greene on Bill Maher this weekend. And,
amazing, right? Amazing.
So clear that she, it's a thing that she uses to get money and attention. It's not the person she is. She's relatively calm, and she didn't really have even that much to say. But it's so you see how much they use that to gin up the base and everything. I still don't think it makes it right, but it does make it easier to kind of understand what's going on, because there is just miles of distance between especially the stuff Trump says. It's like the nuclear testing, because he doesn't really even know the difference between actually detonating a weapon and testing a delivery system. So when he says that shit on Air Force One, you just roll your eyes like, when I start doing it would take. I think I read somewhere it would take like at least 5 years just to set up a safe testing that we have no need to do. So what he really meant was he's trying to play this game with Putin of who can saber rattle harder, and but Putin has a better understanding of how things work in general. So Trump jumps in there and his typical adolescent level of understanding, and it's funny because you'd think the press would be a little more savvy to it, but they do this pearl clutching mock, like, oh, just really going to do that? Like, no, we're not going to really do that. Come on.
Well, you know what's hilarious about that is that, again, I point out the incompetence. Sometimes this gets Kevin a little riled. But as far as he says he instructed his Secretary of War, and as far as nuclear testing, that's done at the National Security Administration, which is under the Department of Energy, not the Pentagon. So now, and what's so funny is that I still remember when during his first term he nominated Rick Perry to run the Department of Energy, and Rick Perry had no idea, being sworn into the position, had no idea he's in charge of the nuclear stockpile. He didn't even realize.
Had no idea what it did in general. Yeah.
Right. Had no idea, but he had no clue, none whatsoever, that he was in charge of the nuclear stockpile, and a lot more, right? So I don't know either.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
picked Nick? But who picked him? I mean, I cannot
is
say
it
this
the
enough.
neocons? Because all I know is the president is held accountable for everything.
Yeah. Well, see but see, Coach, in order to say the kind of things you say, right, you ought to know the difference. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying the president is responsible for his nominees.
He is responsible for his nominees. But when Trump got elected against Hillary Clinton, and no one expected him to win that election, so let's be clear, right? He had to put a government together in a context where no one expected it, including him, that he was going to actually win, and he did, and he was flat-footed.
Let me make this point. When you're flat-footed,
can I finish? No.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to speak 10 minutes. I'm just saying he had to put a government together, and all the Republican establishment talent were neocons, all of them. So Rick Perry, the former governor of Texas, right? Come on, right? All I am here is the neocons, because they were the only talent on the Republican side for 30 years, right? Going back to the 90s, Dick Cheney and all that stuff were all neocons, right? He had to use the neocons to put a government together. Okay, he has done differently this time. This is why he brought in centrist Democrats like RFK Jr., like Tulsi Gabbard, like Elon Musk. They're not neocons. Right? That's what I'm saying. He's not a neocon. So yes, criticize him. He's the president. He was still responsible for his administration the first time around, but he governed like a traditional Republican. He passed massive tax cuts. Okay, what is that? He subsidized extreme wealth in the CARES Act. Yeah, that's what Republicans have been doing for 50 years, right? He didn't do anything radical, within the context of what the Republicans do because he was governed, he was controlled by the neocons. He is not doing that this time. That's what I'm saying. He's fighting them, but he's not as controlled.
Hey, Beth. So we're
Hello.
getting deep into this conversation. We're happy to have you. So what I was saying was, and Kevin was making a great point. Charlie was making a great point. We were just talking briefly about. I'm going to summarize. Was that recently? Let's start here. Recently, Trump made mention of he is ordering his Department of War secretary to start nuclear testing again.
Mhm.
And it was on Air Force One. And all I'm saying is, let me make my point real quick. Is it's worth noting that the National Security Administration is under the Department of Energy, and that's who does the nuclear testing. But he's ordering his Department of War secretary to start up the nuclear testing again. All I'm saying is the incompetence is concerning. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I've watched this man in an interview. He didn't know the difference between the Kurds and the Kurds. The Kurds are Iran's elite fighting force. The Kurds are our ally in Turkey. He didn't know. And he literally argued with a Fox News commentator who was softballing him the entire interview. This is a gotcha question. And he's like, the independent press was saying, no, sir, it wasn't a gotcha question. I mean, I'm sorry I even asked. Now that you say it's a gotcha question. No, it's concerning when and then so Kevin makes the point that during his first administration he was run by the neocons. Now he's his own man. He's Trump being Trump. But and I just don't see that. I'm blatantly disagreeing with that theory, but that's okay because this is America. We all have a right to our point of view. But here's my point. Is the incompetence concerning when you watch a president come out of a meeting with the governor of the Virgin Islands and he says, I just met with the president of the Virgin Islands,
Yeah.
and his staff has to tip him off that you're the president of the Virgin Islands, Mr. President. You just met with the governor, and this is just continuous. And it's just
Yeah.
when we order your Secretary of War, no longer your Secretary of Defense. We're a country in the business of war now. There's no disagreeing with that anymore. That he ordered him to re-up nuclear testing, and he's not the guy to get with on the notion of nuclear testing. These are concerns. And then I just pointed out during his first term, granted it was during his first term, and he seems to be a little different this term, not much, but a little bit. He hired Rick Perry to be the Secretary of Energy. And Rick Perry, while being sworn in, came to the realization he's in charge of the nuclear stockpile in America. He didn't know that taking the job. So I don't know how the interview went, but I'm assuming it wasn't very long or very detailed if he didn't know that he was in charge of the nuclear stockpile. So
Right.
I'm just pointing out that the incompetence is concerning.
Well, it's a concern at every level because if you look at going, if we go with the idea that okay, he was kind of handcuffed with these neocons the first time around, and now he has more understanding of how things work and has more ability to put his own people in here. Okay, so he got his own people in there. RFK, absolutely incompetent for that position. Pete Hegseth, absolutely incompetent for that position. What's his name? Kash Patel, absolutely incompetent for that position. So yeah, maybe he was able to get more of his own things there, and I think it's a freaking disaster. And we're at the very beginning of it. But just those three alone, I have no idea what Tulsi Gabbard's doing with the NSA or how she's doing it. But clearly, you see the weakness in those in those positions. I don't. That's a hard one to argue against.
Well,
Hegseth.
let's argue against it, Charlie, because I mean, I'm not going to defend Hexas. I think he is a joke. But again, for a person who's ending the forever wars, that's his commitment, right? The Department of Defense was not going to be an elevated position, right? So he could put a figurehead in there. My critique about what you just said is on RFK Jr. because I am so done with reducing people down to the stupidest things, down to the most controversial things that they have said. Charlie, you have a law degree, you have a body of work. How could you possibly look at RFK Jr.'s 40 years as one of the most prominent environmental attorneys in this country and say that in the face of what has happened to American health, over the last 30 years, 30, 40 years, right? That he is absolutely incompetent when the last 10 years of his life, he is focused on the impact of American nutrition and the focus on the impact of the runaway pharmaceutical industry, right, on American health, the impact of for-profit vaccinations on American health,
Well,
right? I mean,
what's
because
he
the
doing?
bottom line is, you have a chance to respond. The bottom line is that the condition of the American, who take those vaccines, the condition of the American people who take those pharmaceuticals and who eat industrial farmed food is cratering. We have an epidemic of disease and comorbidities that produced 25% of the COVID deaths because our health is so bad, right? So he is absolutely incompetent. Not the 30 years of people who ran HHS, not the 30 years, not Fauci, who was at the NIH. And now we know it was gain of function that caused COVID in the first damn place. So that's what I'm saying. I don't understand how you reduce him to completely incompetent in the face of that historical record by our government.
Anything on his record since he's become secretary?
It's only just beginning. What is it? Okay, let's go through, because what he's done
Well, hang
is
on. Let's do
ordered
this. Let's let
a broader range of clinical trials for the questions that NIH and HHS never answered. The ridiculousness of of the argument against his critique in terms of the connection to certain childhood diseases, is the fact that these scientific studies haven't been done. We don't ask the question, and then we say it's ridiculous to say there's a correlation just because the incidence of disease in our children is exploding. Right. So that's what I'm saying. All he's done in the 8 months since he's been at HHS is expanded the scientific research to see if these correlations are true. So what, Charlie, exactly is he doing at HHS right now that's so bad?
Well, I can answer that, but I want Beth to jump in first, and then
pulled out a widely discredited study on the connection between acetaminophen and autism, and presented it as new fact. Rolled this out as we're gonna announce the cause of autism. The research hasn't changed. The understanding of it hasn't changed. It is still much more a correlation than any type of proven causation. We're out of the point now that Texas jumping on, now they're suing Tylenol, now taking this as fact, this discredited idea that still has no scientific.
But
he's already come out and said,
confusing these women.
Not expanding. That was just his justification for expanding the research into the correlation. That you're absolutely right. The fact is that the agencies who would do this research historically did not do the research, even though the incidence of disease is exploding. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It'd be one thing if people didn't get the incidence of autism in the United States wasn't exploding, right? Okay, and that'd be one thing, but it is, and we don't understand why. And so this is inquiry. This is normal.
There's
He
some
didn't
very
say the
obvious
question is
reasons
resolved.
Okay, having dealt with it and having family members understanding, we open it up to spectrum, from autism to spectrum. That's the biggest part of it. All right, it's the diagnosis has changed. So there's no real proof that the actual, the symptoms have increased or become more commonplace. We're just attributing more of what we now consider the spectrum to autism. But again, there's a lot of things that when I say incompetent, I'm talking about for the job of being the secretary of HHS. There's a lot of things I agree with him, certainly about food and health and things like that. But he has no idea how to do this job. And when he does get out there and does something of consequence, like the Tylenol thing, it was an absolute disaster. Confusing women, putting women at risk, based on like, again, this was, and acting like this was some new thing, like this was old, mostly discredited research from like 40 years ago. So he doesn't know what he's doing in that job. The big part of that job is to make the country feel safe, to give them an understanding, to act rationally when it comes to their health. And that's not what he's doing.
So let me say this.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me
You know, it's a
hang on. Let
shame
me
that
just say
you-
this.
you-
Hang on. Okay.
Is it okay? It's a shame you feel that way, Charlie. I think it's okay that you feel that way. I think we're all supposed to have an opinion. It's only 8 months in. The fact is where is your contempt for the adults in the room? How long do we have to go through this where the people who are supposed to be experts completely betray us, right? But then someone else gets in there and upsets the apple cart and says, well, we need to look into these areas because this is the actual facts. The incidents have gone up, and it's and that's not debatable. No rationalization of how we change, how we how we diagnose. It's changing the fact that you can't explain from 1960 to 2020 the absolute exponential increase in
Can
autism
I
in the United
explain? Can I
States.
say something
So
now?
He just
yes,
explained it.
So
that doesn't explain it, Beth. It'd be wonderful if it did. That'd be great.
If we had
So
new
all this
technology
time
and
we
new
had,
diagnoses with the DM or DSM-5, or
of course,
and
that has an effect, but that doesn't. You don't
if we
think
didn't have
statistically you.
if we recognize that these symptoms are a spectrum of autism, that we now can diagnose it better,
That
we're
increases
going to have.
that does increase. You're absolutely right, but that doesn't explain the entire change. This is what I'm saying. Otherwise, we'd be able to look retroactively, historically, at how people functioned to the extent that they did function to see if that's true. I mean, it's not like we stop examining our history to assess whether 20% of our children had, or 10% of our children had autism in 1960, even though we only saw that none of them did, right?
But it's
Right.
sort of like that.
But what evidence was there that there was those signs? And what I'm trying to say is that stuff is being done. And so the idea that you could dismiss it because we have better technology today and that it
No,
was
a better
always this, that's
diagnosis.
an assumption that it was always this way. No, that only
No, that
explains.
well, that is, but that you're sort of making it. You're taking the side like that with Trump and the COVID. No more testing, because when we do test, we find more cases. Well,
We
yeah,
have to
yeah.
test. We have to
Well,
do
but
the
my point
research.
is, that's my point. If when we're doing more, when we know more, we have more knowledge, then we find more. So
Yes.
you are
Well,
going
that's
to
what he's
find more.
advocating for. He's advocating for us to do that. We were not doing the test for the correlation by the NIH, by the HHS. We were not funding the testing for these correlations. We kept on saying that the vaccines had no relationship, and we did not do the tests.
I
So
was
so
just
all
using
I'm
that
saying,
as like an example as to why we're finding more autism in
it
today's
does help
population.
us
I
to
don't
find
think it's
more,
been.
I
but that
I
doesn't
think it's
explain.
always been there. I think it's always been there. Maybe not in the numbers that we are having now, but I don't think it's been this exponential increase. I just think the diagnosis has gotten better. So more people have been diagnosed. When you have better testing and better knowledge about certain mental conditions, then you're gonna find more cases. Just like the COVID thing was just an example. Like when you say, hey, when you do more tests, you find more cases. Yeah, when you know more about a condition and you see more signs and symptoms, we're able to diagnose better.
Beth,
so let me hang on, guys.
Beth, that is great and makes sense. But let me ask, but on what basis are you saying that? Because that's just an assumption.
Just
Yes,
common
of course.
sense.
No. You can't answer the question with common sense.
I can answer the
Whether
question with basis. I
it
can answer
takes
the question
research,
with basis.
it takes research to
I'm
determine
gonna
whether or
I'm gonna
not
answer the
the
question
reason.
with research.
Okay, great. But I'm just saying
Okay,
that's
so
all.
first and foremost, I'm gonna answer the question with basis and research. I had Temple Grandin on this show twice. The second time was a direct correlation to the
Are you going to give us
administration.
anecdotal?
No, I'm going to
Anecdotal?
give you absolute research. In reaction to her interview, once she suggested that you refer to PubMed, not necessarily a Secretary of Health statement. Then this is a I got an email from an autistic therapist. I won't use her name because at this point it's not right to use her name because she hasn't been on the show yet. She said she actually said, in light of the recent press conference given by the administration on autism research correlating it to acetaminophen, I would like to share the below press release with you on behalf of my client. late diagnosed autistic therapist, writer, and advocate, is speaking out against the administration's recent claim that Tylenol causes autism, calling it repackaged stigma that causes harm and misdirects resources. Okay, so now I'm referring to an autistic therapist. Autism is not a disease to prevent, it is a neurotype. The claim that Tylenol causes autism is not science. It distracts us from what actually improves autistic lives: education, understanding, accommodations, access, and belonging. This person warns that these kinds of claims reinforce the dangerous idea that autistic people should not exist. Instead, she argues that the focus should be on supports that allow autistic individuals and families to thrive. I can go on and on.
Coach,
The email.
but okay, but
But
see
that's
here,
nothing the HHS. Hang on, let me just finish this one sentence. That's nothing the HH secretary conversed about. That's wrong to just make a blatant accusation that a certain Tylenol causes autism, when in fact there's volumes of research that say that's inaccurate.
Hey, Coach, I look, I love you, brother, but don't sit up here and say that you're going to quote. I said, are you going to give us an anecdotal
I'm not
example?
an autistic therapist.
No, the autistic therapist is not research. That's their opinion. That's an individual's opinion.
And you're telling me Robert F. Kennedy's opinion was research?
No, obviously not. He took up an old research document which has been criticized because the official triple blind type research hasn't been done, right? And he's calling for the triple blind research to be done. Okay, what I'm saying to you is that bullshit that you just read was someone's opinion. That's anecdotal.
That's autistic therapist.
It doesn't matter. That's an individual therapist's opinion.
That works with autistic people.
That is not authoritative in any sense. I'm not saying that RFK's opinion by itself means anything. He's not saying that the research document that he pointed out, which was not triple blind, does not meet the standard of peer review, right? Was the end of the story. He's using that as the threshold for saying we need to answer these questions using proper triple blind research, first class scientific research to find out, is there a correlation? That's how you answer these questions scientifically.
Is that what he said at that big news conference, that big announcement? They said we need to do more research. That was the thrust of it? No, it wasn't. What came out of that was, don't take Tylenol. Right?
All I'm saying to you is what is HHS ordered? Have they ordered the research, Charlie?
One at a time.
The people heard, don't take Tylenol. That's all they heard. That was
you know what? The research is being done.
Said, we really need to do more research about the connection between acetaminophen and a lot of different things, and we haven't been examining it. That's a very rational, logical idea.
The research is being done.
But that's not what that was. That's not what he did as secretary.
Charlie,
he came out there as an alarmist and said, you know what? This definitely causes autism, and you shouldn't be taking it.
Guilty is charged on the performative. On the performative, I hear what you're saying.
The performative was destructive. Right. It's an issue.
You guys, the pearl gripping is just drives me crazy, right? Because it's not as bad as the impact. Women are not running into the street saying, "Oh my God, I took a sort of benefit." They are not. No one is being affected by what he said. There's no one dying.
They told women to take ibuprofen.
Yes, and women are grown and intelligent, and that just because somebody said something does not mean that they all ran out there, or there are women now, underneath the bridge. So we should, because Robert Kennedy said that there's a correlation.
So you're saying you have no recognition of you're saying you have no recognition of administration gravitas, when in fact during the Manson trial Nixon proclaimed them innocent, and the Manson followers said, I don't know why you don't. Nixon proclaimed them guilty, and the Manson defendant said, why don't you just convict us because the president called us guilty. The presidential administration and the president backed up the statement, and it was destructive. And the only thing I quoted was a real blown autistic therapist who said
an
it's
opinion,
inaccurate.
An anecdotal
it's not just
case.
an opinion
coming
from a dedicated professional.
It is an individual opinion. Yes,
it's just an opinion coming from the president.
No. Let me just look. If I was saying on the basis of my argument that what RFK Jr. says as a lawyer, right, should be dispositive, should be something that we rely on, right? Then you might have a point bringing up this therapist in their opinion.
I shouldn't bring up a
Can I
therapist
finish
that's
what
a
I'm saying?
professional.
I am
I'm
saying
just
to you,
asking a
we are
question.
talking about a subject that scientific research is supposed to answer, not some bullshit opinion by you, by me, by RFK Jr., by some doctor. No, there's tens of thousands of medical doctors in this expertise in the United States. And guess what? They don't all agree. So just giving me one doctor's opinion does not help this conversation. What I'm saying to you is this is something that scientific research must do. And all I'm saying to Charlie is that yes, he may have gone on the camera and grandstand about things that he actually believes, and that's his prerogative because this is still America, right? And does that cause impact? Of course it does, right? But what he's actually doing is ordering the scientific research, which is what HHS should have been doing for 30 years, right? But they didn't do it. I'm just saying that's good news. They're ordering the scientific research to see if it's actually true. And when that scientific research, peer review research is complete, then we have something that we could start acting on. That is what our government should be doing.
Beth, take the floor because I think
this administration has cut research on important things like cancer research, child cancer research, Alzheimer's research. They've cut more funding for research than any other administration in current history.
Let us see, Beth, if that to the extent that that's true, because I don't think that's true.
They even fired the people that were doing, we have doctors that
the fact that they fired a lot of people does not mean that they cut the scientific.
They did.
There's fact. That's in the big beautiful bill. The research
look
is
it
cut.
up.
The dollars is cut.
No. Well, all I am saying to you is what is their priority? Okay, there was a lot of research that was being done on
their priority is money. Bottom line, money is saving money.
RFK Jr.'s priority at HHS is not simply to save money. That is not his driver. And what I'm saying to you here is there's no question that they cut some research. They are prioritizing, right, what health in where it is weakest, and that's in our children. If you could, what is happening to the health of children and the lack of research in this space is what they're reallocating the research dollars towards, right? Because that's all I'm saying. It's not like they don't care about Alzheimer's, but we've been investing billions of dollars in Alzheimer's research for years, right? But we have a wellness epidemic in America, particularly with our children, and we don't have the basic scientific research to help us understand why. And he's leading the way in that effort. So and all I'm saying is what I would like from this thoughtful group of people is not to replicate what someone falling off the back of some turnip truck can do, which is to take the most ridiculous things about RFK Jr. and say that represents his whole body of work. He is a serious person, has done incredible work both in the environmental world and in nutrition, right? And we trivialize him by talking about by the way we talk about him now, as if none of that stuff counted. And if any one of us if anyone talked about us that way, reduced us down to the stupidest things we've ever said, or things that we just disagree with. All Charlie is the person who disagrees with me about Trump. His work in law, his work in the community, his work with his family and friends don't mean nothing. No, Charlie is much more than that. And so is RFK Jr.
Hang on. Okay.
Your standard is so low for these very important positions. I'm sorry. He doesn't get a grade like that. It's what
he doesn't get treated like a human like that.
This is treated like a human. These are public figures. We're critiquing their work as public figures, and anytime it becomes, you really have
always been the standard.
Hey. First of all, and in the first piece of legislation that came out while he was secretary, okay, $1 billion for cancer research was cut, $575 million for National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, 838 million for the National Institute of Allergy and
And
Infectious.
we all tell me we didn't
Straight
all
across.
trash the big beautiful bill. We all had a show where we trashed the big beautiful bill.
Well, no,
What
let's
I am
not.
saying-
Let's bring the
when
elephant in the room.
When I'm saying no,
All
but
right.
Charlie has a point. He came out with data, and that's good. What I was just saying to Beth is that he is reprioritizing our in a context where the president of the United States wants to reduce, wants to cut budgets, right? He is prioritizing the research in the areas of greatest need. We have been researching in cancer. We have been researching in heart disease.
Where's the data on
extensively.
that? Or is that your opinion?
No, that's what he's doing.
I thought we were going to be able to do it.
No, we don't have to. You don't have to know my opinion. What are they? What research?
I literally shared an
ordered?
opinion by an autism professional, and you said it was poppycock because it was an opinion.
Okay, I didn't give. I'm not giving my opinion, Coach. And you know what? I'm sorry, man. I mean, this borderlines on whether we want to be honest or whether we want to manipulate. Because
I don't want to manipulate.
No, you keep on
the
citing.
manipulation came directly from the HHS secretary that he made.
Hold it. Anecdotal evidence, taking the opinion of an individual specialist and saying that is valid to say that we should not do scientific research, because that's all RFK is doing. He's expanding the scientific research which has never been done to answer the correlations of these allegations, which his reputation has been destroyed over, because he does believe there's a correlation between acetaminophen and autism and stuff like that. And he cites the limited non-peer reviewed research on this subject, right? He's been just
pause.
Trash.
We've covered this topic to the nth degree. Let's bring in the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the government shutdown and what's really out there at the moment. Let's talk about health maintenance is pivotal to remaining healthy. Now we've got a situation. The government's been shut down for the longest period in time in history, and the standoff is that they want, so the subsidy was implemented. It was increased for COVID. They're saying it's time to remove the subsidy that was increased for COVID because COVID's gone. That's the whole standoff for this government shutdown. When we're talking about administration and HH secretary that's determined to make America healthier, but determined also to make health insurance unaffordable for at least 1.3 million recipients of health insurance right now, because they want to pay for an enormous tax cut for the rich. This is the elephant in the room now, because all we've argued, I said, give this fucking guy the CR, just open the government again, pull the subsidy, and like Charlie said, when people's rates increase, the outrage will be so vigorous that they'll retreat. But here's the fact of the matter. You're arguing on behalf of this administration's position on health care and healthy living, when in fact the ACA, which often is called the Affordable Care Act, I said it should at least be called the Available Care Act. It made health care available to millions of Americans who didn't have health care. And you're defending this administration's adamantly approach to health care. I mean, all I'm saying is, hang on one second, okay? First of all, the HH secretary did make a blatant statement that acetaminophen causes autism. That's an issue, considering the gravitas of his position. I quoted a professional, and you said, no, that's not even fair. What's more important is this health secretary's initiative to pull back some funding and move it in other directions. I've actually said there's money for all directions without the $4.1 trillion tax cut for the rich.
You can't continue to shift issues and then
they're all one issue. It's health care.
No, they're not all one. No, that's not fair. That's not fair, because we have the government shutdown and the implications of the government shutdown and the issue we were just talking about. And you bringing up the nonsense opinion that you introduced. See, this is recorded. I
introduced a professional's opinion.
No. Yes,
the HH secretary is not a healthcare.
Why does this opinion have to be nonsense?
It's nonsense because I asked him before, is this going to be anecdotal? The subject we were talking about is whether or not the scientific research that is necessary to answer the question, is there a correlation between acetaminophen and autism? That's a scientific research study thing, triple
But according
blind,
to the
peer
HH
reviewed.
secretary, there
It is
is,
no, no,
without
no,
the
no.
research that he's allegedly
Hey,
funding now.
Coach, it's your show. You get to talk the most, but someone
No,
else
I
got to
don't.
talk too. And what I'm saying to you here is that this is a scientific research thing. I didn't say just because RFK Jr. I didn't say just because RFK Jr. said that there's a correlation that was good enough.
I
I
never
didn't
said
say
that.
that. I'm not advocating for
I never
that.
said that.
Right? Well, okay then. So then why just because this expert who you quote says it's enough? That's my criticism. This is a question that can only be answered by peer-reviewed scientific research, triple blind, all that stuff, right? And that is what HHS is ordering. All I'm saying to you is that's a good thing, because then we're going to get the actual answer. That's all. As it relates to the government shutdown, okay, here we go. Right? I am not an advocate for the government shutdown, but I can tell you this much. Who's winning here? He's dismantling this federal government. And if Democrats in the Congress want to die on the bridge of saying let the government fail, right? Because they want, whatever the point is, continue the COVID subsidy, continue the Affordable Care Act subsidy for Medicaid or whatever, at the state level subsidies is whatever. If they want to die on that bridge, they're only helping him achieve what he's trying to achieve, which is to dismantle the federal government that was put together by the last 32 years of the political establishment in America. What do you think is happening? This longest shutdown in history is going to validate the permanent firing of thousands of U.S. Of federal employees. So he's just winning. I mean, you know.
But who's losing in the end?
Well, okay. That's a great question, Coach. Okay. Well, I could tell you this much. The American middle class and the American working class who have gotten nothing from their government in terms of the problems that they face in their lives, right? They don't care. They don't care.
We've got to let somebody else jump in.
They don't care that this government is failing, that this
Beth,
federal government is failing.
I need you. Jump in.
Did you say Beth? You need me?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice to be needed. What would you like me to jump in and say?
Right now, we're at a standstill. We've got the longest possible government shutdown, allegedly, and it's been pointed out that even by Chuck Schumer, that if we let the government shut down, Trump has more control than he should have. Chuck Schumer stood on that soapbox the last time, and he said, I'm not letting it shut down. Democrats berated him for not letting it shut down. This time he let it shut down. This is apparently Trump's approach.
I believe that that it does give him control that he's going to abuse because that's who he is.
Does. Yeah.
And but I feel that the Democrats they have lost popularity. They have lost faith because they didn't stand up and fight when it meant the most. And people will never forget that. They haven't, which is why they are continuing to lose. So this holding steady on the only card they have to play, which is not giving their CR bill a go, is to hold out. And the Republicans can blame the Democrats for keeping the shutdown, but they have every branch. They own the White House. They own every level, and at the bottom, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are to be held responsible. I think we're going to find out that they're going to pay the price in the midterms. That's my hopes, anyways. I don't know. I think we'll find out, but at least they're standing firm on something that's important to America. You can't pick between food or Medicaid or medical. You know what I mean? Sick or hungry. Which one would you like?
Well,
Charlie, who's winning?
yes,
Charlie, who's winning the argument on the government shutdown? Now, here's the thing.
I've gone back and forth on this a number of times. My feelings on what the Democrats should do in terms of giving in or not. I read yesterday an interesting story where they did among the interns and the clerks and everyone else the insiders in DC and the Republican side, they did their own internal polling or what do you call it? Kind of like a prize pool, I guess, of how long the Democrats would hold out. And the common number was 10 days. And it was based precisely on what Kevin was just saying. For those reasons, that's why they thought the Democrats would fold. No one, including Trump, and no one thought they really thought that once it became even close to taking away SNAP, the Democrats are the party of their images to be caring for the neediest, and that they would fold at that. And they clearly have not. And I don't think they're going to. I think this thing's going to go on for a lot longer. And it's very sad because a lot of people are going to suffer for it. But I do think the Democrats should hold to it. I don't think they should give, and I don't think they're going to. At the same time, I think the Republicans are far away from giving in to addressing the expiration of those subsidies as well. So, like I said, I think we're in for another 30 days at least.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. Okay, so SNAP gets cut off. The pressure in Democratic states. I'm in Washington State. Oregon is right across the river. California is right down the way. The pressure in democratically controlled states are going to be, what is the state going to do when their citizens get cut off from SNAP? Right?
Why are you saying Democratic controlled states? There's more SNAP recipients.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. But in the state of Florida, they could care less. In the state of Texas, they could care less.
Virginia got an emergency fund.
I'm just letting you know the pressure. I mean, politics is politics. To the extent that the Democratic Party, which I think is no longer true, is the party of working people. If that was the case, they wouldn't be in the spot they're in, right? In states like Washington, Oregon, California, New York, Illinois. Okay, I'm telling you, right? The pressure is going to be, okay, the federal government is abdicating. The SNAP is not activated because of this argument in Washington, D.C. Our people need food. What are you going to do? And believe me, that's one side of the fence. The other side of the fence is this. If it actually gets bad, we're putting Trump in position to be sugar daddy.
No, it doesn't need to be bad because
hang on.
There is a contingency fund.
Beth, jump in. Go ahead.
There is a contingency fund that is meant specifically for this, and it was already taken to court, and the judge said yes, this is what the contingency fund is for, and Trump lost and Mike Johnson lost, and they appealed the decision. Therefore, proving, of course, Republicans or MAGA voters are never going to know that because, I mean, they don't. It's not going to show up on their news Fox screen. But if the judge says no, you have a contingency fund, and this is exactly what this is for. You need to use this for SNAP benefits. And Trump and Mike Johnson go, no, we're going to appeal that decision. That's further proving that they don't want to help the people that are on SNAP. That's not their concern. They don't want to feed the people. That's plain as day.
I could say this much, right? It's very important, Beth, that we differentiate between Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House and a member of Congress, and Congress exercising their authority to decide whether the supplemental fund, what the purpose of the fund is, and the President of the United States as the head of the executive branch. This is not, I doubt seriously that it's a federal agency that's going into federal court saying that the judge is wrong. That it's the administration who's suing to prevent SNAP benefits from being taken care of by somebody. Politics is politics, but I mean, let's be clear about who's the actors.
Let's be clear about if Donald Trump gets a spasm, stops short, dead in his tracks, Mike Johnson's nose winds up straight up Trump's ass. So
the reason I say Mike Johnson is because I've never seen a president in my life ever say, I've not heard of that, or that's not, I haven't heard, I'll have to check into that, has absolutely no idea what's ever going on. Every question that's asked, you're the first, this is the first I'm hearing of it. He is the only president I have ever seen who doesn't know what is always going on. He should always be the first one to know. The news reporter shouldn't be telling him what's going on. So that's why I say Mike Johnson, because that's where we get it. Trump is not going to come out and say, yeah, I appealed the decision because I really want to put pressure on the Democrats. I mean, that's where we get our information from. Mike Johnson, who
I like
bows
Beth
to Christ and lies right to our faces.
That's who the American public is going to see doing these things. And that's all I'm
Well,
saying.
like Beth said, what do the Democrats have left? I mean, what do they truly? I mean, at this point, if they give in, which probably would be the right thing to do, I've said give them the CR, but what do they have left? What do they really like? We've made so many wrong turns. I mean, COVID was a total shit show. The border was a total shit show. Biden showing up at the debate was a total shit show. Kamala showing up at the View saying I wouldn't do anything different than Biden did was a total shit show. I mean, what are we going to do now? Are we literally going to just say the Democrats have screwed the pooch so many times that we're a one-party country and Trump's the king? And I'm not using that term in the way that it's been used so many times, but the fact that, I mean, Charlie, what did the Democrats have hope of doing next? I mean, really, when you think of 4 strikes and you're still not out, you're still the second most vital party in the country. COVID, the border, I don't even what did I just name? Kamala, Biden's appearance at the debate where he literally shut down at 9 p.m. and then the White House came out with a statement by 9 p.m. Biden's done for the day. Well, this is a concern because the president needs to be active 24 hours a day. If I were the president, you woke me up at 3 a.m., yeah, I would rub my eyes, I'd be groggy, but I'm ready to go in 5 minutes. This president's done for at 9 p.m. So we've got 4 real strikes against us at this point, if not more. What anybody, Charlie, Beth, what do the Democrats have left if they don't stand their ground on this?
Oh, nothing. That's why I've moved to that position where like I think they've got to hang on to this. It's he's even those of us who had the most dire idea of what this presidency would be like, I think most of us are shocked at the speed at which he has expanded the power of the executive branch and how little resistance there's been. And I agree with you. I mean, if this is the only resistance left, that and obviously, 7 million people marching, we can get that to 12 million. I think that's the correct number. I saw another thing on television was research into the countries that were able to, when they're in a similar position of falling towards an authoritarian regime, the percentages of what you need in terms of active resistance to be able to keep that from actually happening. And they correlated that to the 7.5 million. And the number was, you'd have to get that to be about 12 million. If you have 12 million people, if you have a number like that are actively trying to oppose this shift in power, then you'll be able to resist it. So, I think we'll see that in the next year and a half. I think, as far as the Democrats, I mean, there's obviously some pretty serious leadership issues. Not that there aren't some good ones in there, but there's a lot of issues there in terms of who's going to step up and bring this party back to the table. But, I don't think it's going to be a hard thing to see that things are either going to go really, really bad in the next year and a half, at which point the Democrats aren't going to have to really need great leadership to win back, Congress, or they won't, and that would be a good thing because I don't want things to get really, really bad. I don't want a horrible economic scenario or a health crisis or anything like that. I just don't think there's a way to avoid that. I think it's one or the other. I don't think that when we get to the midterms, we're going to be just like we are right now. Like I said, things are either going to be really, really a lot worse, or maybe surprisingly not nearly as bad. And maybe, Trump's moves with the tariffs, somehow in a way that I can't comprehend, are able to both keep the economy moving forward and keep unemployment, stable. I mean, if you look at one of the most startling things I just read yesterday, I'd read it several times, so I couldn't believe it, that if you subtract, is it NVIDIA? It's the major AI player.
NVIDIA.
If you take away, just NVIDIA's what they poured into the economy in AI, our growth in the last year is 0.1%.
Yes.
It's that flat. So we are surviving almost exclusively on AI. So
you have seven in the S&P 500, Charlie.
yeah.
7.
So I don't know.
The rest are not making money.
I really have a hard time even imagining a bright future in the next year and a half. But I'm no economist, so who knows? But like I said, I don't think, as far as the Democrats getting back into a position of power, people vote with their pocketbooks. People vote what's directly in front of them. Very, very small group of nerds like us get this far into the weeds. So, they're going to vote. They're going to react to how their lives are going. And if prices continue to go up, and they are going, I mean, the idea that Trump can get out there, and even for him to say things like, we fixed inflation. My God, you really don't grocery shop, do you, brother? I mean, it's bad out there, and it's getting worse. And that's without this bubble possibly bursting with AI. So, in the meantime, it would be nice if the Democrats actually did have some leaders to be in a position to help to make this a healthy situation of a two-party system. And I think they will. I think there's some out there, but I don't have a super amount of faith in the party. But I also think the decisions kind of be made for them in some regards due to circumstance.
You know what I realized is I just realized what Charlie just said is, weren't we the cool kids 30 years ago? And we've become such nerds. I mean, we were really, I don't know if you'd say the king and the queen, but I mean, we really were the cool kids 30 years ago. And now.
Hey, I hear you, coach. I played varsity football. I definitely went to the prom with the woman I ultimately married right after high school. So I'm with you. I thought I was one of the cool kids, but then
everything changed. But what brought us to this point, and I gotta say, what brought us to this point is because I keep throwing it on the Democrats, the 4 shit shows, the Biden, the COVID, the border, the Kamala. But the truth is, Democrats and Republicans have deceived us. The parties have deceived us. There's been this talk of an independent party all along. No one's been thrilled with either party. And then there's this guy who's allegedly the outsider, the guy that's going to change it all, the guy that's doing the heavy lifting, and all we see happening now is really, frankly, what we're seeing happening now is what I believe is they're working together on a lot of this bullshit. I'm not so sure they're at total disagreement. I'm not so sure either party wants this shutdown to come to an end, because the fact of the matter is the concession would be so mild that yes, the subsidies would go away, but you've still got the Affordable Care Act as the foundation of our health care system. So like I keep saying, it's the Available Care Act. If you can't afford insurance without the subsidies, with the higher rates, you can still get diagnosed with a brain tumor and pick up an insurance plan based on your age and gender. So the foundation
of to afford it.
Somehow at that point you would find a way. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but the government's been shut down for 35 days now, and the concession is give this idiot the CR, give these 2 idiots the CR, and see what happens then. And you've got Mike Johnson and Donald Trump versus Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not so sure they're not on the phone right now going, we really need to stick together. Those 4 are.
Yeah.
We need to stick this out together.
But I think Chuck Schumer is just, I think he's done. I don't think his head's in the game anymore.
No.
But I think he's going to get reelected. And Mitch McConnell.
Because they're like default.
No, Mitch is retiring. Mitch is retiring, right?
Mitch McConnell. I hope so. He fell on the stairs.
I never heard that. But I know he stepped down as leader. I don't know that he's. But I don't know. I mean,
he's retiring.
I'm pretty sure.
Pelosi has a primary. I'd like to see her out too.
Well, I'd love to see her out. I'd love to.
So I have a prediction. Coach. I'm predicting that. I think Charlie had mentioned it, that maybe another 30 days or whatever. What's going to happen, right? It's particularly if things like SNAP actually gets cut off. So
today is the day.
Yeah,
I know, but let's see how things flow over the next week, for example. So let's say, no, you're right. No, yesterday was the day. Yes, right, November 1st. Mm-hmm. And so if that does happen, and the logjam continues, now we'll go another 30 days, right? It's going to put Trump in a position where he gets to come in and say, I'm going to authorize emergency funds. out of the executive branch to address some of these issues tactfully. And that's all I'm saying. Because
Well,
while at
he's
the
taken
same
that.
times, yes, I'm sorry, Beth.
He's taken that win with the troops and some other, but
Yes.
he's already lost the food stamp one or the SNAP one. He's already
Well,
that
it's not over
the
yet, and that's all I'm saying is that they put him in position where it's politically in his interests while the government is or while the Congress is arguing, because presidents play off the Congress all the time, and he's going to use this argument. The longer it stays open, so that he doesn't get the blame, he's gonna be doling out what needs to be doled out for right to keep the 12 million people from heading to the streets that Charlie's talking about. Right? Okay. What? That's my prediction that he's going to do that. He's not going to simply let you right, because
you're
then it
right.
does start to fall on him. And this is the between a rock and a hard place of the establishment, because it's not just the Democrats, it is the establishment Republicans, right? Is they're hoping that Trump learns the lesson that they're trying to reverse the government shutdown of the 90s under Clinton that blew up in the face of the Congress then, right? They're trying to see if they can to how do they disrupt what Trump is trying to do, the establishment. And they're trying to use this issue, in my opinion. I think Coach is right that they are working together to try to establishment parties are working together to try to see if the government shutdown can be a wedge in the president's support that then allows them to dismantle what he's trying to do, right? And I think it's not working.
Well,
And
I do think they're working together, and
yeah,
I think Trump sets the stage. He's a big guy on the phone. He loves to pick up the phone. And I don't think there's an email trail. I do think they're picking up the phone and they're talking about this, and there's no say it, forget it, write it, regret it. There's no trail of this, how they're working together, how closely they're working together. And the issue is with me, it's just as simple as this. If one child dies of starvation, it's sick. It's a sick, sick thing that just happened. And it's
mhm,
like I said about the Affordable Care Act. There was literally a child that died of a toothache because the toothache infection traveled to his brain. And that's a sad, sad statement for America. Pick whatever political sides you want, take whatever stance you want, but these children don't deserve the shit show that we've produced for them over the last not 4 years, over the last not 8 years, not over the last 40 years. This shit show we have produced for them. We can do
agreed.
better. There's no need, and I'm picking a side now, but there's no need for a $4.5 trillion tax cut at the expense of cancer research, at the expense of affordable health care, at
I
the
agree.
expense of food,
Very
insecurity.
bad, Coach. Hey, guys, I'm sorry. I
Uh,
gotta go. I gotta take my dog. All right.
oh,
Take
thank you,
care,
Charlie.
I'm
Charlie.
Bye,
It was a
Charlie.
pleasure, my friend.
I'll see you
Yeah, I gotta
soon.
take my
Charlie, you're
dog
going to
out
hear from
too.
us again in 2 weeks.
All right. Looking forward to
Thank
it.
you.
Love you
Thank
guys.
you,
Take care,
buddy.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Pleasure. But
Finish up, Coach. Yeah, that's right.
That's it. That's really my soapbox. If one child dies, and many have died because of this bullshit that's going on, I don't know. I don't know that there's actual numbers. I don't know that there's misery numbers. I don't know that there's death factor numbers. I've even said with the Affordable Care Act, there's 10 essentials. I thought there should be an 11th, the BRCA test, the gene test for women's breast cancer. I don't understand why we can't implement that. I don't understand why there's a thought we can't afford it. But yet, whatever it is, we need to get together as Americans and start resolving these problems because this is an issue that's costing lives. Right now, starvation is about to set in America.
Yeah, 12% of American households are food insecure, according to the U.S.
And
Household
does it get
Survey.
significantly worse with what's happening as of
Of
yesterday?
course,
Right.
yes, yes. No, this is the game that our government is playing. And yes, is Trump a part of that? Of course he is. Right?
All
Yeah. Oh, they all are. This is the problem. I mean, so in their food fight, yeah, the working poor, the all the way up through the middle class are suffering from what's going on, right? And people have had enough. But the question is in this game of politics, right? If only as a longtime supporter of the Democratic Party, if only the Democrats came up with policy, came up with ideas that spoke to the American public of how they were actually going to help, right? then they would be the alternative that I think millions of Americans would flock to. The problem is that the Democrats got nothing.
Well,
It
that's
is
not
not
true.
going to
They
be.
just
I wish they did.
they don't just get out there and say I did this even when they didn't. That seems to be what Trump's
Trump does
thing
that.
is.
Trump
So
does
it
that.
seems to be like it seems
Yeah,
to be
Trump does
like,
that.
yeah, Trump has so many successes when he really doesn't have any notches on his belt that are
When he even
like.
before he became
Yeah.
president, he was claiming success stories. I
No,
mean,
I
I
mean, he
agree,
just said
Beth.
inflation is down, best economy ever, ended 8 wars, 9, no, 10. Like, come on, like you can get out and lie and people can buy that. But here's what I'm going to say about the SNAP benefits and when it comes to money and doing people's taxes, helping people get their social security benefits, death benefits, disability benefits. When people are waiting for their money, they want to know why there's a wait and they want to know who's to blame. They want it now. And I can't wait when they call to tell them, hey, this is where you need to go and find out why you're not getting your money. And explain that, hey, it's yeah, you can blame the Democrats all you want, but the bottom line is Trump was given a way to feed people and he chose to appeal that decision.
and I agree with that. I do put
Well,
that onus on him, even though
no, but see, Beth,
Yes,
what I'm saying here is to me, it sounds like you just did what the Democrats do, right? It is not,
put the
it is
blame where it
not good.
belongs.
No, it is not good enough to talk about Trump. It is there needs to be what is the Democrats offering? This is my problem. What because we did turn to them with Biden. We did.
Their offering
And
is
and the country
healthcare.
categorically rejected what Biden did. It'd be one thing,
You
that's all I'm
say that,
saying.
but
let me
that's not
wind up.
actually true.
Let me wind
Yeah,
up this podcast with one
in
question
the
for the
what
two of you. I'm gonna wind up this
yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna
Mhm.
ask this one question. I've already labeled 4 shit shows for the Democrats: the border, the Kamala, the Biden debate, not presidency, and COVID. Okay, this is my question. If you were in charge of the Democratic Party, one at a time, how would you fix the party? How would you reclaim the party like Republicans seem to have reclaimed some of their party with the Trump approach? Beth?
Yeah, okay. Well, I would go with the Republican approach. I would play just as nasty, just as dirty, just as underhanded as they do. I mean, I would get out and scream our successes when we had them. I would get out and flout, whatever new thing we've passed, the infrastructure bill. That was a great bill. He doesn't get credit for that. I mean, most of the things that he did, Biden capped insulin at $35 a month, $1,000 a year for out of pocket Medicare. Anyway, he made progress, and Trump first day with executive orders to overturn those things. And instead of Biden getting out there and Democrats getting out there and saying, hey, this is what we did, Trump is too loud saying this is what they didn't do. And just because most of the time he's not telling the truth, but it's once the word is out there that so and so has done this, people don't believe. They don't want to do their own research. They want to believe what they've been told. They want to believe what they want to believe. Like I would go into a story, but it's too long. But I just feel like if the Democrats stopped taking the high ground, stopped trying to be the party of responsibility, and just started being just as nasty and underhanded as Republicans, I think they'd have a shot, especially like gerrymandering, mid district or mid decade districting. I mean, come on, they're just trying to make it. Gavin Newsom is the only governor seeming to stand up and saying, "Hey, we're not gonna take that. We're gonna fight back too." But every other governor seems to be chickening out. So you know what I mean? So like we either as a party, they need to get together and go, no, okay, we're gonna be just as nasty, we're gonna fight, or we're not. And I think the Democratic Party is sort of on its last leg, quite honestly, but that's what I would do to fix it.
I love that. I love that. Every point of it. Claim your successes and play dirty like the Republicans. Claim your successes. Stop disowning them. Claim Obamacare. It was a success for the most part. Stop disowning
It
it.
was a phenomenal success.
Right. I mean, it was literally like after it passed, every Democrat, like, it was kind of like Lyman High School beat the Dolphins, and Lyman High School, everybody on the team ran off and said, it wasn't me. I mean, I never understood that logic. I never understood why we didn't call it what it is. It was an innovative approach to making
Yeah,
healthcare a right, not a privilege.
which is why they
It
haven't.
was it
The
was it
Republic.
was it was a Heritage Foundation approach to making healthcare work, which is why the Republican governor of Massachusetts had deployed it first
It was
before
Yes,
how Mitt
Obama.
Romney
Yeah,
started.
before
yes,
that's exactly right. Which is why, in the face of the American public, it's a nightmare. It is hardly a solution for healthcare in the country.
because they
It
don't
is
understand
exactly
it.
no, yeah, you see, okay, look at what Beth put that on a poster for the RIP of the Democratic Party, because that's what Biden said 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that when he was touting Bidenomics and talking about the problem with the American public is they don't understand
They
how
don't.
good they have it. Right.
Well, how good
When
they have it.
inflation
I'm
peaked
talking
at
about just
9.1% in February, in April of 2022. When right. And the fact is, even though the marginal rate has gone down, there's no give backsies. It didn't go below what it was before COVID. No, it is 3%, 4%, or whatever
it
over and
still
above the
hasn't been
9.1.
below
No, the
book
point
price
is the
COVID.
point is that it is inflation is a cumulative effect,
But
which
you
means
seem to
which
forget that Trump was in office during COVID.
I am not forgetting the fact that he was doing, and that's why that's why we elected Biden, right? Right. Okay. So
Well,
all I'm
guys,
saying is, and no, no, hey, coach, you know
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
You
you need
asked a
your.
question. Can I?
no, no, I was
Can
gonna
I
say no. I was
answer?
gonna say no. We can't bring up new points. I want you to answer your question, and
Okay.
then
So my question. So what should the Democrats do? Right. What should the Democrats? The Democratic Party should actually go back to their foundation. Go back to the FDR Foundation, the commitment to shared prosperity, right? The commitment to effective government that serves the American people, right? Instead of becoming the party of Wall Street and the military industrial complex, which Bill Clinton converted the Democratic Party into. The reason why the Republican Party has any energy is the working class and the middle class of the country shifted to Trump, right? Well, if the Democratic Party wants to be relevant again, how about deploying policies that don't serve Wall Street? Deploy policies that serve Main Street, and because Main Street gets it. The idea, Beth, that they don't understand, people understand how they pay their bills every day. They understand that while they can go online and log into the bronze plan of the Affordable Care Act, it doesn't help if you can't afford to pay, as you've said yourself, the premium, right? And that policy, right, is high deductible nonsense, which has you self-funding most of your health care anyway, the health care you can't afford anyway before you access, unless you have a catastrophic event, right? So all I'm saying to you here is, so Obama did not fix the access to health care problem, right? Right, because he did not deploy the public option, which was the cost savings benefit, make the competition, make a government agency, not for profit health insurance plan that the for profit insurers have to compete against. That
Ooh,
was
you just
what
said a bad word. That's socialism.
no, that is what Obama said he was going to do,
well,
and
that's
then he
called
got into
no, no.
office.
So
The
To
public
get an agreement.
option,
the
the
public
public
option. He
the public
retreated from
option.
that. But remember
Once
one
he got
thing.
elected,
No,
once he
no.
got elected.
Not only once he got elected, he hired his chief of staff, and his chief of staff said the only way to get this thing through Congress, the only hope we have is to let the lobbyists write it.
Yeah,
And
after the
the
votes
public
were
option,
after we voted for him. Yeah, that's
right.
great.
Yes, I
Yeah, this is the
agree. I
same
agree. But here's
the
the
same
thing.
okey doke
This is
that they
then
do.
we're
Yeah.
going
It's
to a
still a
situation.
phenomenal program.
It is a
Ask,
No,
but
it's
do
phenomenon.
me a
not. It's a horrible program.
No, it's
It
well,
is.
really
explain
What
to
do
not.
me
you
how it
mean?
works, please. Please. I want to know.
Okay. So it required, all it did was line up millions of customers for the health insurance industry to
Mm,
provide policies that
right.
bankrupt most people who have them. What I'm saying to you here is it did not lower
Wait,
the
wait.
out-of-pocket cost.
No,
It did
wait.
not.
No,
The Affordable Care Act, okay, made it mandatory for you to have health insurance, right? Even though the penalty was nominal, right? But basically, it was mandatory that you had it.
most people
And
didn't
then
pay
if
the
you look at the
policy.
out-of-pocket expense, the out-of-pocket expense for the bronze plan is bronze, silver, gold, platinum, right? Okay, right. Okay. If you look at the out-of-pocket expense, it's extraordinary. It
Wait,
is
wait.
comparable.
When was the last time? I mean, it is high, but it what the Affordable Care Act did is essentially that what that subsidy is was it went based on your income. You got a subsidy, a tax
Yes.
subsidy
Yes,
that made it
yes.
affordable
And
for
everybody's
your
If,
missing
oh,
the
no,
tax
no.
point.
bracket.
If okay, then proof is in the pudding. What is
Well,
literally if 60% of the population cannot afford a $1,000 unexpected expense, how many
now,
people, not
but if
just
you need
now,
insurance, okay, but here,
this
my
didn't
husband
happen
has
when Trump
insurance
came
through
to
his
office.
business.
This happens
Just let
well
me
by.
no, just yeah, let me just if you say it's extraordinary, but my husband has insurance to his employee. And I'm sorry, I hate to get out of the tangent, but
That's
he
relevant.
pays he pays I think $1,100 a month, roughly. I think it's about $600 a check for family coverage.
Yes.
That's essentially we don't qualify for the affordable care. We could get it, but I think there would be no subsidy. Without the subsidy, I think I would be paying $700 a month for myself with Affordable Care Act without any subsidy. But
Yes.
through the employer, it's $1,100 a month. If when you get a subsidy, let's say whatever your income is, it goes based on that. So when you say people can't afford that, people can if their employer is not, it doesn't have insurance or whatever, or they're self-employed, that you're paying it there. Or is 1,100 too much through your employer, or what do you
No,
mean?
what's happened is people are
That's
doing without insurance.
Okay, I'm going to
You
answer the
know how
question
much of
now.
the high percentage of the working poor who doesn't have insurance in this country is astronomical. It's ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. You're right. I'm not saying the private sector version is cheaper. I am saying to you that
insurance as a whole
the
is too expensive.
yes, and
So
Oh,
that
let
the
me,
Affordable Care
guys,
absolutely.
Act the Affordable
Absolutely.
Care Act did not. The cost containment part was to have a not-for-profit insurer,
Oh, I
just
see
like
what you're saying.
Medicare, right, offer low out-of-pocket insurance and make the for-profit industry compete. Instead, Obama, yes, let his chief of staff, make him a liar by saying you can't get it
but
passed in Congress. He didn't even fight for it.
okay, let me say this, and I'm going to wrap
Okay,
it
I'm
up
done.
because I agree with both of you. There was a simple solution to everything you just presented, and the simple solution was was a two-prong approach. Fund the high-risk corridors, which basically means if you're flooding the insurance companies with sick people, the government should subsidize the cost to those insurance companies, ultimately allowing the insurance companies to lower premiums if you fund the high-risk corridors. And the other part of the solution was increase the subsidies. There was no need for a public option if you were able to do both things. If you were able to keep the public companies solvent and profitable, ultimately the argument was that insurance companies are very profitable, more profitable than ever, because we flooded the insurance companies with healthy people. It's fine, not in the long term. But to argue, to debate the point that we need to have a public option or a universal health care in America, let's stick with one thing and make it work better. And that's the Affordable Care Act. I've got to start wrapping it up. I agree with both of you, but I'm just saying there was this solution. It was a two-pronged approach presented to Obama, which again concerns me that both parties wanted to see the plan fail, was fund the high risk corridors. And the reason I explained it is because I don't know how many people know what that means. All it means is that you're giving insurance companies either a tax break for taking on too many sick people at a low cost, or you're giving them funding for taking on too many sick people at a low cost, and increase the subsidies. Had Obama worked with, he just said, okay, Obamacare passed, let's move on to the next piece. He never talked about tweaking it. He was done. He said, we got other stuff to do. Now we got to work on immigration. They all said it's too much for one presidential term, these two big things. You accomplished one thing. It's time to sit back and hope for the best during your lame duck session. So all I'm saying is that approach still applies for the most part, rather than getting into public options and universal health
Coach,
care.
that is insane. That is insane. What is United Healthcare's pre-tax income? The idea
I
that
just said that
I
the
know the
increase,
idea that a health insurance company can have $100 billion in pre-tax income. There's a reason why
it won't
Luigi
last
killed the
forever.
CEO.
It won't
No,
last
what do you mean it don't
forever.
last forever?
It
It's
won't.
only going
Okay,
up.
but we're gonna have to carry on this conversation.
No.
But
Yeah,
I
after
just,
you.
I
Okay,
just said,
I'm going to close
okay,
it out from
close
Kevin
it out.
Howard
Okay.
saying that a subsidy to the insurance industry, who is driving the number one reason why Americans file bankruptcy, is not divorce. It's medical
The
expenses.
subsidy
Right.
would
No.
cover the extreme
This
cost of
comes
flooding
out
them
of
with sick
Coach.
people.
Can you had your time? All I'm saying here is to subsidize the health insurance industry that is forcing more Americans because of medical costs into bankruptcy than any other reason. For years, this is going on.
Yeah,
Who's
but
making $100
Biden made
billion
it so
in
that
profit
medical
per? I
wouldn't go
mean,
on your
no,
credit.
but you're gonna Beth, you're gonna get your opportunity too to close it out.
No,
You're
I mean,
next.
that would have
Okay,
been
all I'm
easy.
saying
You
is
made it so
I
it
am
doesn't go
not
on your credit.
the
There you go. You
idea
don't have to
that
find bankruptcy.
subsidizing the health insurance industry when they're not covering the cost as it is. The reason why Luigi killed the CEO of United Healthcare was because they make it a part of their business model to deny claims automatically and make you fight like hell. And you know how many Americans have died fighting United
I do
Healthcare
know the
to get the
corruption
coverage
runs
that they paid for
rampant.
years?
I do
It's
know the
not corruption.
corruption.
It's not. No, corruption is too nice a word for what they do,
I
right?
was going to
And
say it is
your
corruption.
solution is you want to give them
It
a
is.
subsidy to
It
cover
is. Again,
the
we're
high
going to
insurance.
stand
That's
on our high
bullshit.
horse and say it's not a solution. We can do that. We can agree to
No,
disagree.
they don't need to get a
There.
subsidy.
Okay,
They need to get out of the
but
industry
this
completely.
was this was an approach presented to Obama, who said we're done with Obamacare. All I'm saying is that okay, just say increase the subsidies. When we keep talking about bankruptcy, increase the subsidies even more. Don't make it just for COVID. Make it more affordable for everyone. It works. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
No, it
saying.
doesn't.
I
I
asked the
wish it
question.
did.
I all I did was
You know
I
what
asked the
works?
question.
Medicare
Hang on.
works.
Okay, all I did was I asked the question, how would you improve the Democratic Party? That's how I would improve it. We've
Yes.
got to say we have had an incredible conversation. Yes, it got a little contentious here and there, but we've had an incredible. If we keep on going, no one's going to listen to this show for 3 hours. No one's
Okay.
going to do it. And
No, we're good.
I don't want to lose anybody because there's a lot of important points made. And I also want to say, tune in because in 2 weeks we're going to do it again. And in 2 weeks I'm going to I'm going to hit the bat hard again and drive everybody's ira up more. And it's going to be great because we're great at this. I am getting an enormous amount of emails. People want to do this show. I can't keep up sometimes. My Laura, who's helping me, she's trying to keep up, and we're doing great.
Yeah, I
Let's
told
do
you
it
I'd
again.
help you. Just let me know.
I'm
Anytime.
gonna have you jump in too. I'm gonna have you get with. I'm gonna have Laura get with you and see if you two can coordinate efforts because I really think we're doing an incredible job. I know it got a little contentious. I know Kevin gets a little uneasy when we character assassinate, and RFK may be a little bit of a character assassination there today, but that's public life. Charlie pointed that out better than I did. That's public life. You agree to serve the public, you're going to be criticized by the public. Okay, the standard has been set that Donald Trump cries like a little bitch when he's criticized. So now suddenly it's wrong to criticize public servants. No, I disagree. But I've got to wrap it up. I think it was an incredible show. Political no-brainer. Kevin, tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your book, and let's wrap it up.
Yep. Hey, thank you, Coach. It was a fantastic conversation. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Charlie, my friend, who had to leave at the bottom of the hour. Yes. So my book is Onward at Last, the 2024 Presidential Election Edition. It's actually about unity, but we got to get past some of these false narratives
And
to
have the tough
find each other
conversations.
and have the tough conversations. And then I have my podcast, which Coach Trippy inspired with the Political No Brainer podcast, is called Breadcrumbs, a podcast for people who know it's not working. And it launches every Wednesday. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Patreon, and it's on Spotify. So come check us out. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Can't wait
Thank
for
you.
2 weeks for
2
us to
weeks.
get back
2 weeks. We
and,
need a little
and
break.
start
We need a
Rumble.
little breather. All right,
No, we
guys.
don't. No, we don't.
Start again tomorrow. Tomorrow, same time, same channel. No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Thank you,
Two weeks.
guys.
Yeah.
Take
All right,
care
bye.
now. Bye, Beth.
Bye, Beth. Bye,
Bye.
Bye, Kevin.